This is the chuck wagon. They called it the most important thing on the trail, not the gun, not the horse. A box of drawers nailed to a wagon that fed a nation's hunger for beef. Texas, 1866. The Civil War is over and the state is broke, but the land is drowning in cattle. 5 million longhorns worth $4 a head here and $40 a head up north. The problem was getting them there. Charles Goodnight, rancher, scout, former Texas Ranger. He knew that to drive cattle 1,000 miles, you first had to keep your men alive. An army marches on its stomach, and so does a cattle drive. Before Goodnight, a drive meant cold rations, dried beef, hardtack, and whatever a man could carry. Hardtack was a brick-hard flour and water cracker, baked so dry it lasted years. It fed you. It never satisfied you. Goodnight bought a war-surplus Studebaker wagon and rebuilt it for the long haul. He swapped the wooden axles for iron. Wood would crack on 1,000 miles of rut and rock. The bones had to be unbreakable. His masterstroke was the chuck box, a cabinet of drawers and shelves mounted at the wagon's tail. Its hinged lid dropped down on a folding leg to become a work table. Chuck was old slang for food. The chuck wagon was born. Slung under the wagon hung the possum belly, a stretched cowhide for hauling firewood and fuel across the treeless plains. A water barrel rode the side. Nothing was wasted. Every inch carried its load. The cook, cookie or koozie ruled the wagon. Often the second highest paid man on the drive, his word was law within 10 feet of the chuck box. Cross him and you ate last. Or not at all. The cornerstone was salt pork. Pork packed in barrels of salt to survive months without ice. The salt drew out the water that lets meat rot. Boiled, fried, or used to grease the pan, it was the engine of every meal. Then the beans. Pinto beans, the frijoli. Cheap, filling, and they kept forever dry. Soaked overnight and simmered all day with salt pork, they were the daily bread of the trail. A cowboy could live on beans alone, and many did. And coffee. Arbuckles. The first coffee sold pre-roasted in sealed packages, so it stayed fresh on the trail. Each bag held a stick of peppermint candy. Whoever ground the beans got the candy. Cowboys drank it black, boiling and constant. In a guarded keg lived the sourdough starter, a living mix of flour and water teeming with wild yeast. It made the bread rise without store-bought leavening. A good cook protected his starter like gold, even taking it to bed on cold nights. For quicker breads, the cook reached for saleratus, an early form of baking soda. Mixed into dough, it fizzed and lifted the bread in minutes. No yeast, no waiting. On a moving drive, time was the one thing no man could spare. Here is suet, the hard, dry fat from around a steer's kidneys. Firmer than other fat, it was the cook's shortening and frying grease. It made biscuits tender and pie crusts flaky. On the frontier, fat was not waste, it was life. Fresh beef came from the herd itself, usually a young animal, too footsore to keep up. Nothing went to waste. The cook butchered at dawn and cooked through the day. A drive of 2,000 cattle, and they ate the stragglers. From the fresh kill came the trail's signature dish, son of a gun stew. It used the parts that spoiled fastest, so they had to be eaten first. Heart, liver, tongue, brains, and the sweetbreads. Sweetbreads are the calf's thymus and pancreas glands, soft, mild, and prized. At the stew's center, The beef heart, a dense, lean muscle that cooks up firm and rich. Sliced and simmered low for hours, it turned tender. Frontier cooks knew what city folk forgot. The heart was some of the finest meat on the animal. And the secret ingredient, the marrow gut. This is part of a young, milk-fed calf's intestine, still holding a creamy marrow-like substance. It gave the stew a thick, buttery richness. Old hands swore, without marrow gut, it wasn't son-of-a-gun stew at all. For something sweet, the cook kept dried fruit and molasses. Sugar was scarce and heavy. Dried apples, soaked soft, became pie. Molasses sweetened everything else. A dried apple pie on the trail was a small miracle, and the men knew it. On the treeless plains, fuel meant prairie coal, dried buffalo and cattle dung. It burned hot, slow, and nearly smokeless. The cook gathered it by the sackful. Out here, even the trail's leavings were turned to flame. The Dutch oven did everything. A thick, cast-iron pot with a flanged lid to hold coals on top, heat from above and below. Bread, beans, stew, pie. With one of these and a fire, the cook could bake on bare ground. The son-of-a-gun stew simmered for hours. Heart, sweetbreads, marrow gut, brains, all melding into one thick pot. Some cooks added a splash of chili, each made it his own. No two were ever quite the same. Then the call. Come and get it! Men dropped everything and came running. The unwritten rule. First man through the line, ate fast, and stepped aside. On the trail, a meal was sacred, and it was never, ever wasted. Around the fire, they ate in the dark. Beans, biscuits sopped in stew, coffee thick as syrup. After 18 hours in the saddle, this was the whole of a cowboy's reward. The fire, the food, the wagon, home for one more night. This was the dish, and this was the wagon that delivered it. Charles Goodnight's chuck wagon rolled north for the first time in 1866, and within a decade, every great drive in the West had one. He didn't just feed his men, he built the kitchen that fed the frontier, from war surplus wagon to legend in a single season. The chuck wagon fed the men who built the cattle kingdom. Next time, on the chuck wagon, son-of-a-gun stew, simmered low over prairie coal, the dish that turned the parts no one wanted into the meal everyone remembered.